Well, I'm a German, Norwegian, English little white girl. Our next speaker is an always prepared Marine who is going to tell us in a speech called Irish Heritage, what this means to him. For 8 to 10 minutes, join me in welcoming Mike Slattery with Irish.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. It was about a year ago, this time, and I was invited to an Irish wedding. There were a lot of first, second generation Irish people there, and the bride was incredibly beautiful. The groom was even better looking than George Clooney. But anyway, at the end of the wedding, as we all know, the Irish people, they like to party. So they had a reception with everybody showing up. And as the party got into full swing, and I say into fourth gear, the disc jockey cut off the music, picked up the microphone and said, "I want all you men, stand up. Stand up. And turn to the person that has been the most influential in your life. Give him a big hug." They mobbed the bartender. Now I know that is a bit of a slam, as we were talking about racism, about the Irish heritage. But that's okay, because we all think that the Irish like to drink and party. And I like to consider that okay, because I consider myself 100% Irish. Until I did the swab, sent it off to Ancestry.com. And I got it back, said I'm only 50% Irish, 25% Swede, 25% English. And I thought about that for a minute, and I think that's okay. The reason being is because the Swedes like the vodka, and the Irish like the beer, and they like to sing at the pub. So I still consider myself 100% Irish. But one of the facts about alcohol is that some of the first and best whiskeys ever created were created by the Irish, my people. Now there's right now Jameson, Red Beach, Milton's, Bailey's. There's a number of Irish whiskeys that are out there that are really great. But you didn't know that in 1609, King James licensed Sir Thomas Phillips in Bushmills, County Antrim, as the very first licensed distillery in the world. And this can be verified by Mr. Jameson here. He's been there, and they're still making whiskey. So, the Irish have done real well. Now, I'm sure that I would get some flack from the Scots. They make good whiskey too, but not quite to the same standard of the Irish. But let's go back in time a little bit, and you would think that the Irish came to America because they had an opportunity to expand their alcohol kingdom. But they didn't. Between the years of 1845 and 1855, 1.5 million Irish immigrated here to the United States. And the reason they did that was because of the potato famine. Now, for those of you who don't know what the potato famine was, it was created actually in 1841 when they had a bumper crop of potatoes that all decayed and died. Now, you have to understand that the whole substance to the Irish at that time for food came from the potato. They had no industrial might. They had no agricultural unions of any kind. These were poor people, and they had to have their food. And between that 10-year period, 10 million Irish men, women, and children died. Now you would think, because the landowners at that time were all the English gentry, and you would think that the English gentry would want their land to be prosperous, but they didn't. They didn't help the Irish whatsoever, the Irish farmer, not at all. So they had to figure out what they could do for themselves. And the best thing that they could come up with was, after you dug the potato up, sprinkle it with lemon or lime juice. Didn't work. Cook it a little bit. Didn't work. And they even thought about, and did, put chlorine over the potato. Didn't work. So that is what the potato famine did. And it brought 1.5 million Irish people here to the United States. And the majority of them landed on the East Coast. Came in through Ellis Island, moved to Boston, New York, and New Jersey. My family, as I go back in time, was one of those. And my great-grandfather, when he came here, ended up in New Jersey. Now, my great-grandfather was good because he could read. And every time, and his job was, as a stevedore at the docks in New York, loading and unloading ships, and then at night, he would sweep the streets of New York to keep his family up. But he was not done, and he wanted to improve his life. But every time he went to do that and filled out an application with the name of O. Slattery on it, they took the application and threw it in the trash. It goes back to what Ed was talking about today. It was the racism against the Irish. But like I said, my great-grandfather could read. He picked up an article in the New York Tribune written by Horace Greeley that said, "Go west, young man, go west and grow with the country." So he picked up his family, his two sons, John and James. And they went to Helena, Montana. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm thinking about leaving New Jersey in the middle 1800s and going across to Helena, Montana. I don't think that was the greatest trip in the world. But anyway, he made it. And when he got there, he told the sons that they have to be educated and they have to go to school. So they did. My grandfather, James, became a banker. And his brother, John, became an attorney. And a successful one. He became a deputy U.S. general attorney and prosecuted a gentleman by the name of Philip Fells, who was a rancher in the Montana and the Helena area, who had gotten bribes from the teapot from Mammoth Oil so that they didn't have to have a bid for the lease of the land to get the oil out of it. Well, John prosecuted Mr. Fells, and the people in Montana weren't real happy about that because he brought money into the Helena, Montana area. So my great uncle's was, you don't fire somebody in the political arena, do you? Anyway, opened up a private practice and nobody came. So as a good Irishman, he died with cirrhosis of the liver. But I got to tell you about my grandfather, because he went to work for the Bank of Helena, And he would go to the mountains and pick up the gold and bring it back down to the bank. And at that point, he found my grandmother. And my grandmother was considered a good shot with a rifle. So he put her on the buckboard next to him, and they never got robbed. How's that? Anyway, so that is the Irish heritage that I have, and that I believe is very important, as we all do, about our own families. But there was one thing that was told to me when I was a teenager by my grandfather. And he said to me, he said, Mike, God would have allowed the Irish to rule the world, but then he allowed them to create